Thank you for joining us in the Korean Forum. Olga Tamanova with us. And I'll introduce my next speakers. Right now, Alexander Matizanek, the Speaker of the Ministry of Defense of Ukraine. Andriy Ostrovsky, Head of Strategic Communications Department at the Office of Commander-in-Chief of Armed Forces of Ukraine. And Viacheslav Rayevskiy, Strategic Communications Department. And I invite you, and please present the study project, presentation of education project of rules of warfare practiced by Ukrainian Army. Please. Good afternoon to you all, Ministry of Defense and Armed Forces of Ukraine. Happy to greet you and thank you for your interest to this project. On behalf of the Supervisor of Ministry of Defense, I will say a few words to support this project. In particular, what is the position of the Ministry of Defense? As we all see, war of Russia against Ukraine showed to the world this difference between Ukrainian armed forces of a democratic country and the occupation horde of Russian Federation. Because one of the signs of the European countries is complying with international humanitarian right. Ukrainian army, from the first days of war, complies with all the norms and principles of Geneva Convention. The Russian Federation, on the contrary, ignores them, and there are numerous witnesses of violations of rules and traditions of war by Russian occupants. I would like to reiterate that for Ukrainian armed forces, international humanitarian right is not a new thing. Back in 2017, the Ministry of Defense approved the order that put in action of armed forces of all the norms and rules of international humanitarian right. It's all stipulated in paper, in documentary. This document contains to the full the requirements of all the full requirements of 4 Geneva Conventions, also improving national armed forces, treating the POWs and treating civilians. Also normative legal base in headquarters, in the general staff, also orders of land troops that put in action military statutes of armed forces. There also has norms of international humanitarian right that have a separate component. It's important also to say that complying to the rules of war by all the military is required by the statutes of Armed Forces of Ukraine that are approved by laws of Ukraine. It's also clearly expressed in the laws. And current state of war has to recall about the rules, remind about the rules, and spread it, again, this knowledge among service people. And the project is presented. I'm convinced this initiative will be successful, will reach the goal, and the MOD, as a part of the project, will provide all necessary help and participate in this project. Colleagues, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Andriy. Good afternoon, friends. I thank you for coming here. A few words about motives and reasons that led us to making those materials on international humanitarian right. 8 years ago, we took the course on maximally moving to the standards of NATO, enjoying it. Since 24th of February this year, we are subject to harsh check of our course. This bloody war against Ukraine against Russian against Ukraine from Russian Federation has no excuse from military or civil standpoint. The Russians shell civil objects. They use cruise missiles. They shoot at school buses. They shoot at schools and hospitals. That's not the full list of the war crimes by Russian Federation. They all are crimes that will never be outdated, and there is no amnesty for them. We have to point the attention of the international community to cynical and systematic violation of norms of international humanitarian right by Russian Federation and norms of Russian morale. War criminals have to be subject to international law and be severely punished for suffering of Ukrainian nation. So this project aimed at raising awareness again about the international law and to refresh the memory not only the Ukrainian service people, but also to the civil society and to the journalist community. Also, we have to clearly understand the norm and correctly understand the actions of the enemy, because in the enemy legislation it's also stipulated the punishment for violating the war rules. We also demonstrate the materials and discuss the peculiarities of use of international humanitarian right according to the conditions that led to breaking those norms in the war of Russia against Ukraine. We plan to conduct the full cycle of training and of education in the armed forces, also education Radio Army FM, and to show what we do to the international community. I want to thank the co-authors, all the experts that were involved into creating this course, and the representatives of media for your interest. Thank you. Thank you. And right now I'll ask my technical team to show the teaser of the project. Please, let's see. International humanitarian right, Geneva Conventions, protection of civilians, war crimes, POWs, right to know. Right now, and war times, there's a necessity to clearly understand the rules of conducting the war. It's very topical because international humanitarian right is totally neglected by Russian occupation army, and they conduct series of war crimes. We started a cycle of episodes on international humanitarian rules for our military. Complying with those rules makes our army not only courageous and powerful, but also civilized. Right to know. Thank you, Viacheslav Rayevskiy. Please, floor is yours. Good afternoon. I will tell you a bit about this technical part of those episodes that we'll present. As it's mentioned, this project is aimed exceptionally at spreading the norms of international humanitarian right in the armed forces of Ukraine and also in other components of militarization of and also civils. So about structure of those episodes, there will be about 20 episodes, 20 videos that will have discuss the main rules of international humanitarian right. Each episode will be about certain rules. Most difficult rules will be split to several episodes, so it will be about 20. As experts, each episode will have two parts. First, a theoretical part, or it will be explained what it's about, deriving from an international humanitarian right, just some quotes from Geneva Convention and explaining in simple words. And second part will be experts, the supervisor and deputy supervisor of our state bodies, heads of military administrations, servicemen, volunteers, paramedics. They're people looking at which our Ukrainian community, they have respect in our community, and our community will listen to their thoughts and will be aware of the international humanitarian rules. Sometimes we face certain skepticism that, oh, Russians don't comply with the rules, and some say, well, maybe we shouldn't too. But I say that international humanitarian right is rules of war. And humanity invented many rules. Let's say, that's the rule. The light is on. That electric safety, let's say. We shouldn't put our fingers in the socket because we can be struck by. We can break the rule, but the results may vary. Or traffic rules. We have to cross the street on the green light. We can say many disobey the rules. We can cross the street on the red, but the results may vary. The same with the international humanitarian rule, the rules of war. They might be broken. Saying, hey, Russians do it. But the consequences, the results, could vary. Therefore, with our project, we call on everyone to comply with those rules. That's a sign of European democratic army. That's human, that's right, that's pragmatic to comply with those rules. So we'll comply with them. Let's be Ukrainian. Glory to Ukraine. Glory to heroes. Thank you for the presentation of this project. And now, friends, colleagues, you can ask your questions, please. Questions to our speakers.
Як так повинні бути?
Є питання?
Any questions? Please tell us for how long the implementation of this project will take. As I mentioned, it's about 20 episodes. It's not only episodes. It's about 2.5 months. It will be on air. They will be freely available. It's a YouTube channel for our military TV channel and other resources of the MOD, like Army Forum, Army FM, it will be shown. In general, the episodes will be about 2.5 months, will gradually be put on air. Usually it's Tuesday in the end of the day. First of them will be uploaded today. And then 1-2 episodes per week will be uploaded. So it's 2.5 months. Viacheslav, it was the initiative of the armed forces of Ukraine or the international partners involved with this initiative. It's pleasant to mention that we're not alone in our struggle with this enemy. As experts, we'll have Ukrainian citizens and great people from around the world that will be involved as experts. I can make a bit of a spoiler. One of them is General of Czech Republic of Czechia, General Pavel of Czechia, who really supports the Ukraine. He'll be as a military expert. He's a general. He's a very respected person. He'll command one of the roles. Also, one of the experts is a professor of Tallinn University that teaches international humanitarian right, and he's a world-known expert. So it's not only Ukraine alone; it's also our partners from around the world. Since 24th of February, we understand that the personnel of our military was increased. It was more than doubled. How fast do you think it will be possible to train our armed forces like this? I'd like to tell you a story, if I may. That knowledge, it's not taking from the air, out of the blue. They're close to any normal person. The project of spreading the war rules of war, and armed forces, from formal standpoint, as mentioned in the legislation and documents, only during the war, there were several thousands of personnel, the training were conducted. And also when the trainings are conducted, it's interesting to watch the reaction of people. At one class, because I conducted classes, a guy, he used to be a volunteer of Pravy Sector. He had a tattoo, Pravy Sector, trident, Pravy Sector on the neck. And he says at the lecture, yes, actually, that's true. I says, why are you saying that in the lecture? He says, because I'm in a fight since 2014. I had my own rules also, how we have to fight. And now, you say it's international humanitarian rules, but it's good, it's human. If a person is moral and ethical and is citizen of Ukraine, it's from the heart, from the soul, from moral, ethical norms. Therefore, I think it will be quite fast, and all the servicemen, all the people will think about what's happening. There was one more question. Ostrovsky, BC News. We understand that the humanitarian rule or rules of war exists not only to know how to fight, but also to have a legal framework to know what to punish for and how. What can and cannot be done, and what will be the punishment. Please tell me, is there a purpose of this project? Is it just a training purpose, educational purpose, or a practical legal purpose as well? And how, in a legal sense, will this program be implemented? There's a good saying, theory without practice is dead, and practice without theory is irrelevant. So it's not only educational project, of course, it's the tools that could be used afterwards, of course. It's not only episodes that could be, you could say on YouTube, it's a series of trainings that we conducted and will conduct in Ukraine and our forces. And we discuss more on practical aspects there on war rules. So servicemen, they understand, and women, they understand what are the rules and what could be the consequences. How we can classify certain actions, not to become a war criminal, of course. Are there any more questions? I thank you all for joining us today and presenting this important project. Thank you and glory to Ukraine.
У нас є декілька хвилин. Якщо є якісь особисті питання, щось уточнити, задати, welcome.